What is up guys, welcome back to the channel. And look, I'll be honest with you, I had a whole other video planned for today. But when Dana White dropped this announcement, I threw everything out the window. Because this fight right here is the kind of matchup that makes you remember why you became an MMA fan in the first place. Khamzat Chimaev is back. And he's not just back, he's defending the middleweight title against none other than Strickland at UFC 328. May 9th, Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Mark it in your calendar right now. I've been watching MMA for a long time, and I genuinely cannot remember the last time a single fight announcement sent a current through the entire community like this one did. And before we break everything down, if you're new here, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know, and I promise you won't regret it. Alright, let me give you the full UFC 328 card first, and then we'll dig deep into every single fight, because there is a lot to unpack here. Your main event, Khamzat Chimaev defending the middleweight championship against Strickland. Co-main event, Alexander Volkov versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta in a heavyweight clash that could reshape the entire division's landscape. On the main card, you've also got welterweight contenders Brady and Joaquin Buckley, Blachowicz taking on Bogdan Guskov in a light heavyweight rematch, and King Green versus Jeremy Stephens at lightweight. And kicking off the prelims, Ateba Gauthier faces Ozzy Diaz in a middleweight bout that could end very, very quickly. There is a stacked card top to bottom. But let's be real, you know why I'm making this video at this hour. You know what fight we're all obsessing over. So let's get into it. Khamzat Chimaev vs Strickland for the UFC middleweight championship. Let's start with where both men are coming from, because context matters here. Khamzat Chimaev is, at this point in his career, a legitimate once-in-a-generation type of talent. The man is 15-0 as a professional, 9-0 in the UFC, and he has not lost a single round cleanly in probably 2 years. His title run to get here was absolutely relentless. He went through Kamaru Usman with a majority decision at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi, then absolutely manhandled Robert Whittaker via first-round submission at UFC 308. And then topped it all off by out-wrestling and out-grinding Dricus du Plessis over 5 rounds at UFC 319 in Chicago last August to claim the gold. And here's the wild part, du Plessis barely had a mark on Chimaev's face by the end. Khamzat walked out of there looking like he hadn't even been in a fight. That's how dominant this man is. And Strickland is a completely different kind of animal. His most recent outing was just a few weeks ago, on February 21st, where he TKO'd Anthony Hernandez in the 3rd round in Houston, his first finish in over 2 years, and immediately called out Chimaev in the post-fight interview. "If Chimaev gets off the bench, I'd like a piece," Strickland said. "Well, Sean, ask and you shall receive." It was also Strickland's first fight back after more than a year away from the cage, having gone through a difficult 2025. That included a shoulder injury he was reportedly carrying into his rematch with du Plessis, followed by an NSAC suspension. But against Hernandez, he looked like the old Strickland. Relentless volume, sharp jab, ice-cold composure. Now here's the thing that makes this matchup so fascinating, and it goes beyond just the fighting. These two have already been trading words for a while now. Long before this fight was official, Khamzat was posting "Be ready Strickland" energy on social media. And Strickland was doing what Strickland does, just saying whatever comes into his head. And some of the things he said, they were not the kind of things you can take back. We're talking about personal jabs, religious commentary, cultural provocations, the kind of stuff that, for most fighters, is calculated PR. But for Strickland, it's genuinely just how the man talks. There's no filter, there's no media training, what you see is what you get. And that's what scares me about how this whole press tour is going to go. I'm not worried about the fight itself. Well, I am, but we'll get to that. I'm genuinely worried about the press conference. Because here's the dynamic. Dricus du Plessis, as unhinged as he seems, is actually performing. He's playing a character to some extent. He knows where the line is and he knows how to toe it. The man has reduced Strickland to tears and driven Israel Adesanya to complete emotional meltdown. But it was always calculated. There was always a method to the madness. Strickland operates with no such guardrail. Whatever is in his brain exits through his mouth. Period. And Khamzat, Khamzat Chimaev has become a bit more composed since becoming a father, and he carries himself differently now as champion. But don't forget, this is the same man whose pre-fight situations have gotten so heated in the past that Dana White had to cancel press conferences entirely. Remember the Nate Diaz saga? Chimaev missed weight, the tension between the camps was nuclear, and Dana literally pulled the plug on the press conference because he didn't trust what was going to happen when those two shared a room. Now imagine that same volatile energy, but Strickland is in the opposite chair, saying things that Khamzat takes very, very personally. That's the X factor here. That's the unpredictable element that could make this the most entertaining fight week in years, or the most chaotic. On a pure fighting level though, here's my honest take. Most people are going to look at this and say Khamzat finishes it inside 3 rounds, fight over. And look, I understand why. The wrestling, the pressure, the physical tools, Chimaev is a nightmare matchup for almost anyone on the planet. But Strickland is not most fighters. This is a man who has shared the cage with some of the most elite talents in the history of the middleweight division, and has found ways to survive and thrive in moments where logic said he shouldn't. He beat Israel Adesanya when no one thought he could. He gave Du Plessis 2 absolute wars. His durability and his ring IQ are criminally underrated. If Strickland can weather the early storm and make this a war of attrition, if he can get deep into the championship rounds and start banking volume on the feet, this fight gets real interesting real fast. Chimaev has not historically been tested in late rounds. The question is whether Strickland has the wrestling defense to make it there. My gut says Khamzat wins, likely by decision if Strickland manages the early rounds well, or by stoppage if he doesn't. But do not sleep on Strickland. If there's a man on this earth who would genuinely enjoy getting in there and making Khamzat Chimaev uncomfortable, it's Sean Strickland. Now let's talk about the co-main event. Alexander Volkov vs Waldo Cortes-Acosta. This is an absolute banger of a co-main event, and I feel like it's getting a little lost in the Chimaev-Strickland chaos. Which is a shame, because this fight could be outstanding. Volkov is one of the most well-rounded big men in the UFC. Huge reach, disciplined striking, solid grappling fundamentals. He's been knocking on the door of a title shot for a while now, and a win here keeps him firmly in that conversation. But Cortes-Acosta is no joke. This guy is the real deal. He's been on a tear lately. He finished Dan Ige with a spinning back kick and punches, and he is absolutely one of the most exciting heavyweights on the roster. He fights with a violence and a pace that most heavyweights simply don't match. If he beats Volkov here, we are talking about a serious title contender emerging. This is a classic striker versus striker matchup at heavyweight, which means at any given moment, one punch ends the entire night. Keep your eyes on this one. Next up, Brady vs Joaquin Buckley. This is the classic grappler versus striker matchup at welterweight. Brady is methodical, technical, and suffocating. His wrestling drains opponents and grinds them down on the canvas. Buckley, on the other hand, is a walking highlight reel who can end a fight with something you've never seen before. If Brady consistently gets this to the ground, it could be a long night for Buckley. But if Buckley keeps it standing and lands one of those explosive finishes he's known for, it might end instantly. This fight has bonus written all over it. Then we have Blachowicz vs Bogdan Guskov, the rematch. Some fighters age like fine wine, and Jan might be one of them. He's been through wars, held the light heavyweight title, and still competes at a high level. Guskov is a dangerous striker who nearly had him in their first fight. Rematches always add intensity. Guskov knows what went wrong last time and will be ready. This could easily be the sleeper fight of the night. Overall, UFC 328 looks like a fantastic card, but every conversation still comes back to one fight. Khamzat Chimaev vs Sean Strickland. Weeks of press conferences, face-offs and chaos still await before fight night in Newark. And honestly, the build-up might be just as entertaining as the fight itself. If you're excited for UFC 328, drop your prediction for the main event below. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.